future our people deserve.
What does Janine think is in that box, Caleb?
I don't know, but she's testing Divergent. Searching for the one who can open it.
Find them. Every last one of them.
Janine's never gonna stop coming after us. It's time we fight back.
We don't have the numbers.
We will.
Welcome, everybody, to the Next Reel's Film Board, a monthly gathering of the Next Reel's gang of thugs to take on one current release. This month, we're diving back into the mysterious world of Triss and her merry band of traitors with Veronica Roth's second Divergent opus, Insurgent. Before we dig in, I would very much like to introduce the thugs in residence. Representing abnegation, of course, the most selfless of the band, coming to us possibly from a moving car or a barrel in a river, Steve Sarmento.
I'm Insurgent, you're Insurgent, this whole film board's Insurgent.
And representing erudite, the brightest star in our celestial curtain, Andy Nelson.
That's right, and don't you forget it.
And clearly representing Dauntless, brave enough to go train jumping at a midnight showing of this very film, all to be prepared for his first time as a member of the Film Board Gang of Thugs, Justin J.J. Jaeger. Welcome to the show, my friend.
What happens if I choose factionless?
No, you can't choose, because I am factionless. I represent the mildly bemused and generally bored, so that's my role. You don't get that.
All right.
I'm so glad you are joining us on the show here.
Thanks. I'm really happy too. It's super fun.
Do you know what makes me the most excited?
What's that?
Is I think you have an illustrious IMDb credit, right?
I don't know how illustrious this is. My legitimate IMDb credits are not even listed. You can find me in actual film credits, but the things that are in there are pretty much all short film.
Let me tell you how excited I was about your film credits when my family and I actually watched Glee, the 3D concert movie.
Oh, you saw it come through. That's awesome.
Oh yes. My friend Justin Jaeger. You ran the cable camera in the concert, right?
That's right. I actually operated a Cameron Pace 3D camera, and it was, well, since I'm a Glee fan, it was the thrill of my life. But I was the only camera operator there who didn't know the character name, or did know the character names of the actors. So that was kind of special.
That's major nerd cred.
Glad it was there for sure.
Glad to bring that to this show. All right, so one of our fold is missing. You will notice that there is no Tommy Handsome on the dance card this evening, and I just wanted to let you know he did phone it in. He literally phoned it in, and he has included some of his responses to this film that we can insert when we may be at a loss for words. So throughout the course of the night, you may just hear such Tommy Handsome classics as
Really?
And
well, now I've heard everything.
And maybe for the more intense sequences,
that's not a knife. This is a knife.
And you might also just hear,
what? I don't know what plots are.
And I can tell you now that Tommy has sent us a flick chart song just for tonight. So there is a new Tommy Handsome flick chart song coming up later in the show. Before we dig into Insurgent, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com/film board. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you're ready to take the test and choose your faction, which you don't really have to worry about because there are seriously no real stakes in this thing, and you can change your mind to anyone. How ridiculous that the future is still decided by dumb factions anyway. You should probably head over to Instagram.com/thenextreel and play The Next Reel's Instagram #PonyPrize, #GuessTheMovieChallenge. And I usually don't remind people of that during the film board, but I want to do that right now because of Steve.
What?
Yeah?
What'd I do?
I think you took the longest to send the 2014 #PonyPrize, #GuessTheMovieChallenge prize to our winner, Cameron Ryan, but you definitely won the prize.
To quote Tommy Handsome, I'm terrible. I apologize to Cameron profusely for being such a horrible slacker, but I hope the little bonus piece made up for it.
It made up for it, I think, for all of us. And there are pictures of that floating around. The work that you did to create a triumphant pony, a very pretty triumphant pony in a case, it warmed my heart, and I know it warmed Cameron's. That you could win things like Steve's art by playing the Instagram Pony Prize Challenge, and you all should do that. Winners announced weekly on the next reel. Play to win. Okay, here we go. This is it. I went back to basics, gentlemen. I listened to our Divergent podcast from last year. And time, I think, has done what it needed to do. It has cemented just how wrong you all were in the sidewalk of time, reminding so many others in our wake of the misery that comes from living on the wrong side of history. Surprise revelation shortly, but first our trip around the table. How did Insurgent stand up to your critical eyes? The hand starts with Andy.
I also listened to the show again because like I said on the show earlier this week, I couldn't really remember what happened in Divergent. And I was really trying to figure out what that movie was all about and what the point was. And so I listened to the show, and, while I still recall finding it somewhat enjoyable, it's not something that I feel like I would return to again. And I feel like Insurgent kind of ended up filling the same bill. It was enjoyable. I didn't have any problems with it. I think I enjoyed it more than Divergent, but I also conversely find it kind of instantly forgettable.
Instantly forgettable passes to Steve. Go ahead. Let's see if your naive optimism can hold up to instantly forgettable.
Well, I did not listen to the Divergent podcast, but I recall that there were somewhat favorable comments about the film, and I've watched the film again since then and felt that it was all right. I don't think it merited the somewhat tempered enthusiasm we may have had for it at that time. And I think the same goes for this one, that it does, entertain. It doesn't do anything extraordinary or spectacular. I think this film was probably overhyped for what it turned out to be. And although I enjoyed it, I don't think it's going to be something that endures.
All right. Won't endure passes to JJ.
Well, I, too, listened to the Divergent podcast, but mostly because I'm a pinch hitter. So I thought I was going to bring something completely different to this group because of the fact that I would be the only one that just immediately recently listened to the podcast. But it's good that you guys listened to it, because I think I had come to the table, or come to Insurgent, thinking that I would have a great way to defend sort of all of the benefits of the doubt that people were giving to Divergent, and unfortunately, Insurgent took away pretty much all of that for me. I'm really curious to hear what Andy found more enjoyable about Insurgent, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But for me, some of the things that I was willing to, go to bat for about Divergent were just almost completely extinguished with what I saw in Insurgent. So I was left wanting to go back to the fun that I thought I had in the first film.
Wow, I almost want to dig more into that than Insurgent. Sure. I'll tell you, I found I went with my daughter, as I have mentioned before. I take her to generally make bad choices when I take my daughter to movies, but this one is one that she read all the books, and we saw Divergent together, and so this was definitely one that was on our list. And I have to say, it was strange sitting in the theater before it opened, because she even could not tell me, could not remember what Divergent was really about. I mean, to this instantly forgettable comment, if my 12-year-old girl, who is squarely in the target segment, the target demographic of this film, can't remember what the first movie was about, and really generally was only going to the movie this weekend because I had to see it for the show, that's got to tell you something about the foundations on which this series is built. At least it tells me something. I found the experience watching the movie, and this is actually how she put it. I tried so hard to get her to be a guest on the show tonight. I really wanted to get her voice saying awesome. This. She is not up for that, but her comment was, And she actually had this comment about the book. And so, Steve, this is going to go to you. That the book.
Steve and Andy both read the book, right?
Andy, you didn't read the book.
No,
right?
I have not read the books.
Okay, I read the books. They were also forgettable to me. But her comment about the book,
I don't remember those either.
Exactly, was that it was it was a lot of action, very little substance, and that to me isn't even quite as, it doesn't even make the movie, it doesn't even live up to that quite as much, I don't think. But it was a lot of flash and very little substance, and I found the experience really sort of a snoozer generally. Okay, so Steve, do you remember the book?
I just finished the book last week because I hadn't read it. I had tried reading it before, and it just stalled out. And then I thought, well, let me see if I can make my way through this book before the movie so that I can sort of see what's going on. And given that my daughters had said, from the trailer, they're like, that's not in the book. That's not in the book. What the heck are they doing to this movie? And I thought, okay, let's see if there's something that they're doing to the story that will make sense of why they made these changes and what's going on with this. And I just walked out of the theater like an hour and a half ago. So it's still really fresh in my mind as far as the film and finishing the book last week. And it's the only thing that I can say. So here's what went wrong is the book, I think, was there were some plot problems with the book where it really didn't do anything and it hurried to the end. And then in terms of adapting it to the film, let me just say these words to you. Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, Lost in Space, Practical Magic, I, Robot, I Am Legend, Winter's Tale, Insurgent.
Ooh.
Akiva Goldsman wrote this one. Did not write Divergent. And I think that there was an attempt to bring somebody that had some experience and credibility to larger films, that this film was going to have a lot of money invested in it, and they didn't want to take chances like they did on the first one. And I really feel like the changes were made. I can see why structurally they may have made some changes, but it still felt really flawed and didn't come together to say, I think, what this larger story might be trying to tell. But again, I don't know what that is now with these changes that they've made in the film. And again, the book, I haven't read the third one, so I'm trying to see what is really trying to go on with this story from the book. So it's sort of, I'm in the middle of a muddled mess, both in the books and in this quadrology that they're turning this thing into.
This was very much my sense when we first started this thing, that the problem really fundamentally is the source material. I had the same problems that I have with the movie that I had with the book. I think I have trouble with the series. But I want to go, JJ, you said that you actually had some fun and interest with Divergent, and that was extinguished with Insurgent. Can you reflect on that a little bit?
Yeah. So in general, and from listening to the podcast about Divergent, a lot of what we focused on in terms of the factions and the splitting of the groups had to do with that going back to high school clique thing. And I totally get why that's where we would go, because this is young adult and that's the thought. But what I brought to it in looking at Divergent was really talking about it in terms of politics and thinking about it as potentially, and this is, again, I'm looking at it now, I feel like I'm giving maybe too much benefit of the doubt to Roth and to the movie makers, in that the stakes that were unable to agree to in that first installment was the idea of, I don't want to point any fingers at one particular political party, but you imagine maybe growing up in a family of hawks when you're a dove, or vice versa. And you think about like the fact of, Triss or Beatrice at the time, growing up in a family of peaceniks, for lack, I'm not trying to be pejorative here, but in the peaceful family, but then feeling the need to go up and do her duty or defend or that sort of thing, right? So she chooses to go to war. And I guess those kind of things are the things that I thought that actually brought some weight to the first film to me. And actually, those, again, I really feel like it's me giving that film the benefit of the doubt now, and because now when I look at it, that we come to simple things like the whole stakes of eliminating the program that was mind controlling all of the Dauntless as they did it in the first installment, and then immediately turning around an Insurgent, and the Erudites have created a completely second, a V2 of mind control that they're going to sip on everyone. So the stakes that I was going to give them the benefit of the doubt of in the first version, where, oh yeah, well, they eliminated it. They eliminated the program. They're going to have to do something different. They just came back and did it again. So any benefit of the doubt that I wanted to give them in that first episode was eliminated here in Insurgent. And, you know, for me personally, in all these types of, even in the young adult versions of these kind of things, like if you want to say Hunger Games, the Twilight or Divergent, the thing that I really latch onto in these series is the mythology. And I feel like in Divergent, they actually did a great job of that initial setup of the mythology of this world building kind of thing. I bought into that in the first one. And because of all of the mixing of that in Insurgent, all of that fun part of figuring out where you belong and making a commitment and all that, and just kind of went away. And that was something that was really frustrating to me about the second episode. I don't know if that answers your question, Pete, but really that was the thing that I hoped that they were going to get more into, and I feel like they muddled it so much in Insurgent that I don't even know where they're going to go from here.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And I was one, last time around, I did not buy as much into the world building. I thought it was a touch too on the nose and sloppy, but I totally see your point. Andy, what do you think about this whole, how did the film structurally hold up to the world building stuff that you did, I think, like in the first film? I think that was stuff you bought, right?
Yeah, I bought into it in the first film. I think the problem that I had with the first film, luckily, as I rediscovered listening to the show, was that it was the training. I felt like it really bogged down because there was like that hour in the middle of just watching Triss train and learn to become a Dauntless that really seemed to slow things down. And the rest of the movie I felt a little more enjoyable. This one, it didn't have that slowdown for me, I guess. I don't know. I think that it works, but I think that it does have some inherent problems in the way that the script is structured in this one too. And I don't know. A lot of it goes to Roth and the world that she created. I think it is an interesting world, but clearly it does have some flaws. And as we get to the mysterious message that's revealed in this one, that is really designed by the founders, as like, I don't know, Triss's grandmother or something, that created this, or has this message that kind of is there to kind of explain the factions and explain the divergence and all of that. All of a sudden it was just like, I don't know, it seemed like now they're basically just like, it's like the Dome here, right?
Yeah.
That Stephen King book. It's like, society is trying to figure themselves out, so they basically put everybody into this thing, and they're doing this giant experiment on them. And that part to me really kind of, I don't know. I don't know what to really make of it. I guess I don't know anything about Allegiant, so I don't really know where they're going to be going with it as far as the world building. But I mean, I think in the sense of the world building, I think you guys are right. The nice element of the structure of the first story was that design of these people picking, these young people picking a faction, and it did feel very, very much like young kids having to pick the clique and figure out who they're going to be. And that is largely absent from this one.
What I do like, what they did with this one, is they threw that all out. But when getting to the last sort of section of the film where we've got sort of Triss trying to unlock this box, and she's got all these tests she's got to go through, we've sort of learned what the strengths are. And I know we cover that in the first one, but to really see that those personalities in action, perhaps in their purest form, to open this box, that she's got to pass a Dauntless test to prove she's Dauntless, and erudite and amity and all of those things, and to see what that means for that society of, if you can be all of these things, that is the ideal that this sort of project was set up for. Was we need people ultimately to become all of these things. We'll set them up as factions, but really a true complete person, the person that we need to be, is somebody that has all of these attributes and that balance. And I thought, there's an interesting concept, there's an interesting idea, because I think the whole idea of the factions does, and I think we discussed this, sort of like that high, your typical teen high school movie where we see all the factions in the high school, and we've got our new loner that's coming to school, and where will they fit in, and how do they play in with these groups. And this film saying you don't need to identify with one of these, but seek to be a balance of all of these things to be a complete and whole person. And that's the ideal, to not be possibly biased or to shun certain things, but to embrace them in balance.
But do you think it mattered after? I mean, they kind of dropped the whole thing for the entire film until the ending.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the weakness of the way this story ended up being structured, with trying to get things to be to. We need these things to happen to get to this point, and that's what bothered me a lot in both the book and the film. That there were things that just sort of. The plotting of, well, we need to set these things up so that then we get these payoffs later on. Whereas in the first one, I felt like there was this discovery of the world, whereas this was, okay, we're just going to observe things happening within this world until we get to the end point where, okay, here's what this story is really about. And the rest was, well, can we entertain you while you endure this important information we need to get to you so you understand what's going to happen later?
Right, and I think a lot of that goes to Steve, what you're talking about the source material, and this might be how we can differ, or how to separate kind of the books from the movies in it, in that, for me, what I liked in Divergent was the stuff outside of the action. In fact, I disliked the action in Divergent, because I just don't believe it. I especially don't believe it in the case of Shailene Woodley.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, amen.
Talk more about that later. That's something where literally when I was listening to your podcast, I had to stop it and call Pete and yell at his voicemail about it. I was like, she's ridiculous. Sorry, Shailene. I love how you cry. But she cries really well. And seriously, like, if that's what they wanted, they've cast it well. But no, the point that I want to go to is about what Steve was talking about, of the whole thing about with the second book, too, in that it was a lot of action with very little substance. So maybe, in listening to that, really what that means to me is that that's why this movie wasn't as great to me. I wasn't willing to give it the benefits of the doubt there, because the action failed me in the first movie, and so with having more of that here, it's not like I believed it more. It actually kind of made this movie less enjoyable for me, because the substance is the only place that I was willing to make apologies for movie one, and like you guys just said, they didn't even really revisit that until the very end of Insurgent, and that was tough for me to deal with as an audience member.
It's an interesting thing, because I'm not sure, and I'm going to say this out loud, and I trust you guys will correct me. It doesn't really follow the middle movie paradigm, right, in the series. Like, you expect Act 2 in a series of 3 to be darker, right? And this one ends on kind of a surprisingly up note. I mean, they win. They get the message out. This is the whole thing they've been trying to do, and they learn a great new thing. And what is really, really interesting about, what's the third one? Allegiant. Allegiant. I have also read Allegiant, and I remember thinking, to JJ's point, the stuff that was not action in Allegiant is the most interesting stuff. I mean, we've set it up here with Insurgent, right? We've had the uprising, and we've overturned the evil overlord of Erudite, and the factionless are in control. But what happens now is the political struggle that comes with the upstart, kind of the new dictator, right? And that Naomi Watts is the new overlord, and her world is going to be fraught with just as much sort of political struggle as the old one, and so that I find actually, philosophically, politically, strategically interesting. Whether they are able to pull it off with any degree of sophistication beyond what we've seen in the second film is up for grabs, but. It gets to this point about setups of middle movies. This is no Empire Strikes Back, right? I mean, this is no this doesn't give us that sense of gloom. It gives us, I think, more kind of pomp and circumstance. Am I wrong?
Well, I think the other thing that middle or second, second films in a trilogy or franchise can do is they in the first film or first story can be very contained around that individual character, and the next story is that opportunity to crack it up into a much, much larger world that the hero is now seeing the scope of things. And we get a little bit of that here of, there was this larger planet work. But I agree, it was not dark enough. If Naomi Watts is supposed to be a sinister character, it really doesn't come across that way. The closest I thought that they were getting to go to be really dark was when Eric, Jai Courtney's character, they storm, and he's scanning people with the magical Divergent scanner, and there's the little girl, and he scans her, and it's like 40%, and he's like, oh, that's not good enough. I'm like, he's gonna shoot like an 8-year-old girl? They're gonna do that in this film? Wow, they're not. And I thought,
why didn't they shoot the 8-year-old girl?
Well, I thought, if they're going to really make this dark and edgy and really make him a really dark and sinister person, because, if we're going to push for that, to really raise the stakes of good versus evil of something, that, are we going to go there? And they're just, you're right, Pete, there was no impending disaster, really. The stakes just weren't there, and there wasn't some dark, shadowy, something coming in to infiltrate this story.
Well, and I love that you brought up this setting, right? I love that you brought up this expansion of worlds, and I'm going to go back to Empire Strikes Back, because here we get Dagobah, right? I mean, we get to go to a wholly new place, and what do we have in Insurgent? We get essentially errands out to this to the commune in the field. Like there's no real sense of expansiveness to this world beyond kind of wrecked Chicago. It's just like, here, we're going to go out to the field for a little bit. There's no real threat there, because what do we meet in the field? We meet people who love each other. Like, where are the stakes in that?
Octavia Spencer is scarred, so it's a really dangerous place out there.
Man, she got high billing for her role here.
She sure did.
For her 3 minutes in the film. Yeah.
Well, and you bring up Empire, but I mean, honestly, if we compare it to something that's a little bit more in the same school of it, and we look at like Catching Fire, right now, and I haven't seen Mockingjay, but you think about Catching Fire, and you think about all the fun stuff from Hunger Games, and then they capitalize the bulk of the film, like 80% of Catching Fire is the fun stuff taken to another level, and then they take the big transcendent thing and they give you that in the last 15 minutes of the movie. Where I feel like Insurgent, what they did is they eliminated all the fun stuff from Divergent. They made we're going to destroy the story and mythology that you thought you had, and they make that the bulk of Insurgent, and I just don't think they do a good job of that. I mean, Andy, I'm not sure if it was you or Steve who brought up the thing about the girl that's about to be killed. Instead, what Veronica Roth did is she took her little magic, Divergent tool and put it on her character and said, Eric, you're only 40% important, so I'm just going to kill you off here. Because he was going to, he's going to get really sinister and, this is going to become dark. But no, your character is not super interesting, so we're just going to end you in this part of the movie.
Like, that's what I should have been reading. How useful are you to the plot?
Right.
You're only 40% useful. Yeah, we can cut you out of here.
Actually, if you look really closely at that tool, there's a little red line that's labeled plot utility. And you have to, if you cross that line, you don't get killed. But
to the point of sequels, I think James Cameron also, when he decided to do Aliens, I think a big part of that was he said, you can't just go back and do the same thing. You have to change it. You have to there has to be something new, some new element, and that's why he came up with the Queen. And that he knew that it would have more aliens, but you can't just have more aliens. You need to change it up a bit. Same thing in Terminator 2 with the liquid metal. And this one doesn't have anything new. It really is essentially the exact same thing. I mean, yes, it was nice to explore some of the other factions a little bit, whether the hippies or the black and white people, but it wasn't. There was nothing new in the film.
If we were to hang a lantern on a representative that anchors this film in exactly the same space as the first, it's the one and only Mekhi Phifer.
All I could think about was Tommy every time he showed up on screen.
Me too.
Appropriately.
I'm Mekhi Phifer, and now I'm going to give you an order as Mekhi Phifer.
And then he got shot, and I thought, I want to see this film with Tom, so that I could just see him just raise his arm, sit up, yeah!
I really, that's, Andy, I think to your point, I think you're right, man. The more I think, I'm looking at the cast list, right? I'm just going to even Kate Winslet, straight across, same bit of evil. This is another, back to my daughter. I said, so what, we're talking about who changes and learns and grows over the course of this film. Typically, we're looking at the protagonist to change and learn a valuable lesson and move forward. And she thought for a minute, she sat back and she's kind of in the car and she's really musing. Like she's looking out the window. I can tell she's really working at it. She said, I guess maybe short hair. Like that was the extent of it. And I think she's exactly right.
Can we talk about the hair at all?
The fact that she starts.
There's more there than that, Pete. There's more, and unfortunately, it gets buried.
It does get buried. Yes,
it's the guilt over shooting Will that's giving her these nightmares, but then it's completely dropped, and then it's at the end where she's facing herself, and she's when she's having the conversation with her mother and the whatever test it was, the Amity test or candor test of that she's got to be willing to forgive herself. Those types of things. And I thought
that's fair. That's fair.
It just it's there, but it really got underplayed. It was
flat.
It was very flat, and that was no, it didn't. We didn't see a transformation in Triss as far as how she behaved or what that enlightenment, of okay, this is what I need to do. She doesn't act any different. It's not like, okay, this is going to help me resolve this issue with this person or anything. It was just, I learned this about myself, but now I'm going to continue going on and fighting and trying to undermine, these evil plans. But it didn't give her any special skills or knowledge or anything that the hero usually gains in their journey to help them transcend and, overcome the conflict. It just was there. And again, there's so many things about this film that were just there. I mean, you look at this cast that is so underutilized. There's so much potential for so many of these cast members in other things. I don't know if it's, what happened, but I felt like meh most of the way through. Even the special effects were, to me, just
Yeah, in particular, when they CGI'd the characters, during those were really, they were, I guess I'm expecting more now.
And I saw it in IMAX 3D.
Yeah.
IMAX 3D, I should have been blown away. I saw Catching Fire in IMAX, and that was
stunning.
Oh my God.
It was stunning.
Yes, it was stunning. And this was just, everything's big and it's dimensional, and JJ coming to, hairdos. Pete and I already started in the back channels, talked about, it was the most textured and dynamic bedhead I've seen in a film in a long time.
Nobody on set looked up and said, do you realize we've doubled the height of her head in hair? Nobody noticed that in the series. There was an audible laugh in the theater. And this was a laugh, like this wasn't, the last time I saw it, it was like with the blue hair crowd. Like I ended up on the AARP bus. This time, it was with the target segment. I mean, I was sitting in there with like 12 to 16-year-old girls and their dads, right? And it was dad sitting like 10 seats away. And they were laughing. And this was a serious moment in the film.
It should be. I mean, as a symbol, right? Is it in the book? I mean, that's my question there.
The bedhead?
And if it's in... Well, no, not the bedhead part, but the haircut.
Veronica Roth expends 20 pages describing this hair and its import to the faction system.
The haircut's in the book.
No.
Okay, good.
That's all of chapter 7.
No, but the haircut's in the book. But it's, according to Sophie, it's the wrong haircut. It's more of a bob.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Should have been a bob, right?
Yeah.
And she looks positively masculine after the haircut, and I just feel like it's like who I am so confused at who they want Triss to be, and that's I guess why in the first film I was totally comfortable with Shailene Woodley in the awkward abnegation, like I'm a young girl, this is uncomfortable for me, and she plays that well. She does not necessarily play the mature badass I'm gonna kick everybody's ass thing, and when she cuts her hair, when she goes to that route, it doesn't help. She's still left with this little girl look to me, and it's like if it was an emotional point, they lost it, and throughout the rest of the film she never lived in it. And my question, I mean, after I told Pete this on his voicemail too, is when I saw Divergent, it started with the Sensational Now trailer, followed by what's the other one? The Fault in Our Stars trailer. So I literally thought I had just bought the Shailene Woodley pack, for huge Shailene Woodley fans. And I was like, in all of those, she has short hair too. So I was fully convinced that they only cut her hair because that's how she likes to wear it. So I needed to ask if it was actually in the book or if they made that stuff up. So anyway,
that's pretty good. That's one of the I'm going to say about Shailene Woodley. I mean, I thought The Fault in Our Stars was really very good. I thought that was wonderful casting on her part, and I think she did a great job in that film. And The Spectacular Now, this was just a weird role for her. Still,
I don't have a huge problem with her. I mean, I know you guys have more of a problem with her as the action star. That doesn't bug me so much. Seeing her running around with the gun and stuff. It's I don't know. It doesn't bother me a lot. But I don't know. There's something about her emoting, I think that I think is a little much. But according to my wife, who has read the books, that's what her biggest problem with the books is just how much emoting she does in the books. It's just all of this constant inner turmoil about, does he love me and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, wait till the next book, because the next the next book actually goes back and forth in terms of the primary narrator because it's all first person, right, and it's all from the perspective of Triss in the books.
That's how all the books have been.
The first two, and then the third one, it goes back and forth between Tobias and Triss. And so, because they're in different places, and so occasionally you'll just wake up and, hey, now I'm Tobias, and you go for a chapter or two with him. Speaking of Tobias, Theo James, how do you think 4 did in this outing?
I like him, but I don't think this film gave him anything to do. I mean, I liked him in the first one. He was winning me over, but in this film, there was nowhere to go. I mean, I guess he's angry at some points, but in general, I don't know. There just wasn't much for him there.
He's kind of an anchor, right? I mean, he's kind of an anchor.
He is. I think he's fine in the story. The character, I feel like this was one where I felt like there was definitely more in the book, and this is just my assumption, but there seems to be a very interesting relationship story between him, his father, and his mother that's only been touched on in the films, and I feel like there's I want to learn more about him, and I don't know if we're going to an Allegiant, maybe because it is partly his story, I don't know, but I feel like there's more to him that I just I wish that they would just tell me.
It feels like a tool. It feels like a tool here. Yeah. So if it's more robust in the books, that's fine. But really, all of the parent-children relationships feels like a tool by the author to get us where we need to go emotionally with the film, and it's frustrating if you're trying to be objective, because I'm just not buying it right now.
I think my opinion of Theo James, and I think it aligns with yours, the fact that he was a tool. The same can be said for Jai Courtney, for Ansel Elgort, and for Miles Teller, and that was probably the biggest disappointment, is not getting to see Miles Teller do something more broader, more interesting. And I find myself really pro Miles Teller right now because I was so excited by his performance in Whiplash that I walked into here looking for, maybe secretly they've decided this is going to be a Miles Teller vehicle, and everything else we're just going to switch to the hero is now Peter, and we're going to follow his story. And I was pretty disappointed that they made him. Not only did they make him not interesting, they made him the Judas, and lampooned him at the end, getting him punched in the nose, stealing the guns. It was he became a puppet, and that made me sad.
That was a little disappointing, but it was true of all of the supporting characters. I mean,
yes.
Octavia Spencer, we already mentioned. All of the former Dauntless people, Zoe Kravitz, Maggie Q, Ansel Elgort pops in, but barely. You really don't spend time with anybody. I mean, Daniel Day Kim, I love watching Daniel Day Kim. Yeah. And I mean, I thought that part with the whatever they are, the candor was interesting. But I just wish that there was more of him.
That whole that scene really disappointed me because I thought, okay, here's this crucial moment where let's forget just how poorly set up it was that Ford needs to basically say, hey, why don't you put us on trial here and give us a truth serum? I was like, oh, okay, whatever, we need to get to that, fine, that was poorly executed compared to the book, whatever. But here's this crucial moment where they've got to struggle to tell the truth, and I thought, okay, we're going to get something really interesting visual to convey this. And for Theo James, it's like, ask him 2 questions. Okay, you get to go. And then Shailene Woodley, sort of hug yourself really hard and cry and twitch around. And apparently that's going to convey this deep, intense struggle to not betray that she killed one of her own friends to her friend Christina, who had this very close friendship with the guy she killed, I thought. And all we get is just sort of this close-up of her, sort of hugging herself. I thought, what? Really, here's this critical point. I thought, here we're going to really ramp up and get into something interesting. And it just, again, it left me flat.
Yeah. Well, and never mind that they're dauntless, and they're not supposed to have those feelings, and they all went through that training, and it's for all intents and purposes a completely defensible. She was in self-defense. So
that is a really good point. That we have evidence that they have been trained with the same sort of tool.
That goes back to my original point about the fact that the things that I wanted to give them the benefit for in the first thing, they just destroyed it in this film for the purposes of where they wanted to take the story, and that left me just with no direction.
Okay, how much of this goes to Robert Schwentke?
Good question.
Is it Robert Schwentke, or is it, like Steve pointed out at the beginning, the writers? I mean, this had some of the most painfully clunky dialogue. I mean, I started laughing when Kate Winslet, after she kills that Divergent, and she's like, I've been assuming all Divergents are the same. And she keeps talking. It's just like, there must be just one Divergent. And whatever her monologue was so, I was like, Kate Winslet, like, this is more painful than watching Natalie Portman in the Star Wars prequels. It was so bad. And I was just laughing in the theater at how bad that line was. And I felt so bad for her. I mean, Oscar-winning Kate Winslet suffering these painful lines. I mean, Robert Schwentke, I mean, geez, he did R.I.P.D. I don't really give him much credit either way. So I blame it all on the script.
The script, as we go back through, the writing credits for the script, right? Brian Duffield hasn't done much. He's got a credit on here, and he's got a fairly short, a really short CV on this front. We've already talked about Akiva Goldsman. Mark Bomback also has a credit, and Mark Bomback has the Wolverine on his credit. He has Total Recall on his credit list, though he also has Dawn of the Planet of the Apes on his credit list. So, Race to Witch Mountain. He also is on Live Free or Die Hard. He also has Deception on his as a credit. So, it's hard to know on these multi-credit things just who did the bulk of the work. But my goodness, it's kind of a roller coaster with some of these guys, with both of these guys.
Yeah, and it's interesting that in both for Bomback and Goldman, Goldsman, that in both their cases, yes, they've written some of the things that are integral to these franchises, but in both cases, they have potentially franchise-killing films to their credit, which I mean is a scary thing. When Steve was listing that list for Akiva Goldsman, I was like, wait a second, is this a positive or a negative?
Well, then you see like A Beautiful Mind, and
right?
you go,
it's good and bad.
Yeah,
but that's sort of the outlier when you look at things that had potential and just, I think, are classic cases of wasted opportunities. I mean, Lost in Space to launch a franchise, and then the killing off the Tim Burton, Batman franchise with Batman Forever, Batman and Robin.
But then you get, there's a run of, and I don't know. Where do you guys stand? Where do you guys stand on A Beautiful Mind, Cinderella Man, Da Vinci Code, I Am Legend, and Angels and Demons? And iRobot was in there. I skipped it.
So it's not really a run, then it's just Cinderella Man.
It's more of I'm going to call that a triple jump.
Just call it his Ron Friedman. I mean, Ron
Howard.
Yeah, Ron Howard.
Yeah.
Right.
The Beautiful Mind, Cinderella Man. Because I didn't see Da Vinci
and
Code.
Well,
Or
they're all Ron Howard, all
Yeah.
four.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're all. I'm in the minority, I think, as far as thinking A Beautiful Mind is something great. I didn't really care for it that much. Same with Cinderella Man, Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons. I mean, they're all enjoyable. I think Akiva Goldsman is, you know, he has some storytelling skill that can be crafted, but I don't think he's anything great.
Here's the thing. I didn't find them. I agree with you. I mean, I really do. I didn't find those films worth talking about on the merits of ridiculous dialogue. Right? That never really enters the conversation when I think about those films.
Every one of them, well, I guess this too, they're all adaptations, so he's only working with what he's given.
Well, that's true, but I guess my challenge again would be, since we said Insurgent, you know, again, sort of being ultimately forgettable, Pete, as much as you may, you know, want to look at that run of films, how many of those are ones that you frequently go back to over and over again?
I Am Legend.
Or are they ones that you... Oh, I Am Legend.
I Am Legend's
okay.
the only one. I really enjoyed I Am Legend. I think there's a lot going for that film.
Read the novella. It's much better.
Oh, I did. No, I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah. But I celebrate the canon. So
yeah. Okay.
But you have a point, and it's I don't go back to that particular well, but I don't. I mean, this film is full of some dialogue that's reasonably toxic.
Is it what was it? Naomi Watts at one point where I can't remember what happened. She basically says, "Get him out of here," and I thought, really. Let's get Naomi Watts on set.
That's what Naomi Watts brings to the table.
Get him out of here. And I thought that's what you're going to give her. That's it.
Yeah. She wasn't particularly. I don't know. Is maternal the word?
Oh my gosh! I've just suddenly felt old because I'm like, we're going to cast Naomi Watts as Theo James' mom. Oh wait, didn't she just play Ray in King Kong a little while ago? Why am I?
It was longer ago than you may think.
Yeah, about 10 years ago. Yeah, I know. Like, she can't be old enough to play his mom.
It's the same 10 years for all of us, Steve.
Yeah, I know. That just means I'm getting older.
I gotta check this out. So Theo James was born December 16th in 84. She was born
in 68. I was just doing the exact same thing. So.
Dang.
Yeah.
All right, that sort of nails it. I guess she could.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I like it.
Although it seems like her career has, she's. I don't know, maybe just I wasn't watching films that she'd been in, but it seems like I hadn't seen her for a while. And then, just lately she's been popping up in a lot of things with Insurgent, While We're Young, St. Vincent.
Birdman?
Yeah, Birdman. So again, it seems like that's sort of a resurgence here in her career of finding a particular, being able to make that transition, I guess. I don't know.
At the top of Andy's Naomi Watts celebration list, movie 43.
There you go. The film board that never was.
All right, Andy sort of threw out our director's discussion, and I want to get you guys have any comments about Mr. Schwentke?
There was nothing spectacular about it. Again, like I said, there was nothing that really wowed me in any of this. There were sequences that were somewhat entertaining, but I think the writing, and again, I think just trying to, visual effects to wow that just don't. Having people like let's spend a lot of time on Theo James disintegrating into little flaky pieces of whatever. Like the camera lingered there as if this was something that was, I go back to like Jurassic Park of Sam Neill looking up and we just see this majestic dinosaur and the audience is being in awe. And I'm like, this shot is not something that we need to linger on. Why are we spending so much time here? So I don't know that I can blame him. He was limited with what he had to work with. I wasn't angry at the film that I walked out. I wasn't frustrated. I wasn't yelling at the screen. I was, somewhat, engaged and mildly entertained throughout. So, and I'd say the same thing went for R.I.P.D. But, Flight Plan, Time Traveler's Wife, Red, I thoroughly enjoyed those films.
I was going to say, I thought you guys were on the bus for the geriatric action film. Red.
I haven't seen Red 2, but I like Red 1 a lot. My thought about, if you want to talk about camera, there was literally only one shot in all of Insurgent that I thought was special. And that was as they were escaping from Amity, and they do a reverse kind of POV shot as they're running to the train, and it's on Eric as they're coming out of the forest. And the camera is moving rapidly away from Eric as he charges at you. And there's a little shake to it, even though it's not necessarily meant to be shaky cam. That's a really special shot that you don't see very often. A lot of times they don't want to take away from the focus of the speed of the chaser to show the same direction of movement. But I thought that was special because I thought they made it still look rapid and still give you that sort of suspense that you need in that. The reason why I bring it up is that there was only one that I noticed, whereas in Divergent, again, different director, there was a lot of really special shots. There was a lot of things that were set up to give you an attractive view of this story that they were trying to set up. And Insurgent, and this kind of goes back to that thought of there's a lot of action here and not a lot of substance. I feel like it doesn't look, from a direction standpoint, it doesn't look like Schwentke spent a lot of time with the shots, setting things up, because he was focused on the action. And that probably goes back to the source material. So I don't necessarily want to fault him too much, but in looking at that, in seeing it, and looking for the beauty in the story, I didn't really see that in the direction. So that's why I don't really have much to say about it, except for that one shot that I thought was special as I was going through it.
Well, that certainly digs into both Schwentke and his, cinematographer of choice, looks like Florian Ballhaus, who has done, looks like, all of his other films, including, One Chance, The Book Thief, The Novice, Lullaby, and then, of course, Insurgent most recently. So, and Marley and Me. So if you want to cry about dogs, that's going to be the one to do. What else is on your mind around this film as we wrap it up? Anybody else in particular you want to talk about?
Can we talk about music?
Oh, yes. Let's talk about the music.
I think it's really interesting that in the first film they have all these pop music cues, and especially they have 3 different Ellie Goulding music cues, which it wouldn't have been my choice. And I really love Ellie Goulding, but I didn't think they kind of matched. I think they were using it in kind of that young adult, here we're going to be cool, in that Twilight kind of theme of we're putting in pop music. And then Insurgent, there's no music cues at all. Why would that be?
You mean no pop cues?
No pop music cues. There's nothing that comes up. It seems like a completely different choice.
What about there was a song at some point toward the last act of the film.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was more kind of like the coda of everything. But yeah, in general, they used it multiple times in Divergent, and that was the only one that was present that I could count.
Well, that's an interesting comment, too, because I sort of made a mental note about just the general throb of that bass undertone, that sort of digital bass. Wow, 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 wow. It is pretty constant throughout the whole film, and there's some other sort of lyric, instrumental score on top of that. But it really felt much more like kind of a trance video to me. I felt like they were trying. He was trying to go for something, and the music is Joseph Trapanese. We're gonna go with that.
Who actually has collaborated with Daft Punk. On like Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
So he actually has that might be why it feels that way for you.
Yeah, and and Oblivion, and I'm just thinking about that. Like, that is a very different sort of acoustic choice for this film, and he was one of the additional arrangers on Divergent, and I wonder if that was what decision what forced that decision, or what pushed him to move in that direction. I think that's an interesting one, because the moving away from the pop cues, it sure makes the soundtrack much more of a music inspired by the film than music from the film.
It just seems like a choice to me. I don't know why they would choose. I guess I can't figure out the why behind that. It seems much more sense, even though I didn't necessarily agree with the Ellie Goulding choices and some of the others in the first one. It seemed like that fit what they were trying to do with the audience more than what they did with Insurgent.
It is strange. I just think it's strange that they did that. I didn't think too much of Joseph Trapanese's music. It didn't bother me. it worked fine. It does strike me as strange, though. I completely agree with JJ. Really, it's why would they make that choice when they know who their target audience is?
Unless anybody has any vital additions to this film, anything you've been holding, now's the time to play those cards because we're going to move into ranking.
Let's rank.
Let's do it. The great Tommy Handsome.
It started with Divergent, now Insurgent is emergent. Film board, you are convergent. In my absence, I didn't see the film. I was at a merchant for detergent. Flick chart! Needn't have bothered.
Thank you, Tommy, from abroad. He's on he's sailing the 7 seas, but he is due to be back next month. For now, head over to flickchart.com/TNR Film Board, and you can catch up with all the films we have ranked on this very special monthly series. How many are we up to? We got to be up to what, 30?
This will be the 32nd.
32. Woo. Film number 32, and we're going to see if this one breaks. I'm going to put top 25.
5? Yeah.
Let's see. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
First up, Insurgent or Cloud Atlas? I will definitely pick Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas.
All right. Insurgent or some Akiva Goldsman action here. The Wolverine. Oh wait, it wasn't It wasn't him on the Wolverine. It was the other writer, right?
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Goldsman's on it.
Goldman's on it?
No. No. It was the other guy. The
Mark Bomback?
Yes.
Bomback.
Yeah, it was Mark Bomback.
Oh. Because the first third of Wolverine is really good, and then there's the bullet train fight, and then
there's the arrows.
Always go to the arrow shot, but still, like such the bad, like I'm in a giant steel samurai suit fight. But
well, let me objectively say, because I haven't seen the Wolverine, and I've heard you guys talk about the Wolverine, that it has like 3 or 4, and I'm a huge Marvel Comics fan, and I still haven't seen it because I'm scared that I'm going to hate it.
That's probably a safe play,
right? So, but the fact that you bring up like 3 awesome things about it. If you can find 3 awesome things about Insurgent, then you can put that one. Otherwise, you should probably go with the Wolverine.
I like JJ. He can come back.
Yeah, it's got Ninja Bikini in it too. What's her name? Ninja Girl at the beginning, who's very cool. And we don't have the depth of character in Insurgent that we do in Wolverine. So
I'm on Wolverine train.
Wolverine. Yeah, there we go.
I'll jump on the Wolverine bullet train.
Okay.
All right. Insurgent or Oz the Great and Powerful?
Insurgent.
Oh really?
Yes.
Really?
I would pick Insurgent.
The line must be drawn here. No further.
Oh. Yeah, probably.
Commit, Steve. Commit.
Yeah, I'll go with Insurgent on that one. Yeah.
JJ, have you seen Oz?
No. I brought a infant to Oz that didn't go so well. So we ended up walking around the mall as my wife and my.
So the Wolverine.
Right. The Wolverine.
No, we just went.
Oh, Oz.
Insurgent instead of.
I mean Oz. I'd like to vote for the Wolverine again. I don't accept these 2 choices.
So Insurgent over Oz.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Commit. Yes, I'm committing. That should be it, right? We went straight to the bottom.
No, we're not quite at the bottom
we're not
yet.
at the bottom.
Insurgent or the Monuments Men?
Oh, right.
I would do Insurgent over Monuments Men.
I still really
biggest snoozer.
I enjoyed Monuments Men.
Now, I'm going to have to go with Andy on this one. I'm going with Insurgent.
Go with that.
JJ,
have you seen Monuments Men?
Insurgent.
No,
but go with that because I'm excited for your next battle.
Because it's going to go against like Black Hat or something.
No, we're not going down. No, we're not. We're working our way up from the bottom.
That's right. Black Hat is at the very bottom. Okay.
Insurgent or the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1.
See?
Oh, wow.
Good.
I would pick Insurgent, I think.
These movies. I mean, this is 6 of one, half dozen of the other. We had the same problems with that film.
Right.
And that was even, I think actually that was, the Hunger Games was even more disappointing because it was coming off of Catching Fire, which was a win.
Which was great.
Yes.
Yeah, which was really solid.
I'm going to go with Insurgent. On principle.
Insurgent.
I'm Insurgent, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, I just watched Mockingjay because my kids never got a chance to see it in the theater. We just watched it, and yeah, I would go with Insurgent.
All right. That puts it at 25 out of 32. Right?
All right.
Right. The Hunger Games
Right. He
Mockingjay.
called it right at 25.
In the crosshairs. Yeah. That's right. That's right. It's taken me 3 years to get that just right. 3 years. I think that's it. Do we know what we're doing next month? Have we already picked it?
We don't. We have not. So
well, this will be a fun surprise.
Surprises.
If you're curious, you can always check it out. After we end this tonight, we're going into the very difficult. We're going into what do they call it when the Pope has to when we lose a Pope? What's it called with the smoke? Where all the
I don't know what they
priests.
call it. But yeah.
What's that called?
Yeah, they get sequestering, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's got a Pope word. We're going to do that. And we light our little smoke, the white smoke, when we decide a movie, and you can find that smoke on letterboxd.com, where you'll see a list that Andy lovingly curates. Lovingly.
That's right. We'll
really
have a
lovingly.
list on there. Really lovingly. Lately, definitely. We have a list on there of the Next Reel Film Board's watch list, and so we will add our next film to that list. You can check it out as soon as we make the decision.
But you can bet it's not going to be Paul Blart Mall Cop 2.
No, you can bet it will be.
Andy!
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to download the show, to listen to the show. Thank you all, the gang of thugs, for making time to have this conversation. Andy Nelson, always a treat.
Absolutely.
Steve Sarmento, back on the road to you, sir.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And our first timer, how'd he do, guys? JJ. Justin Jaeger.
Did a great job, and he's welcome back next time.
There we go. JJ.
Let me come back.
Thank you for joining us, my friend. It's really good to hear your voice on the show.
Thanks. Had fun.
Excellent. Hey, thanks, everybody, and we'll catch you next month. TNR Film Board. This coming week, however, Andy and I are diving back into our film noir series with 1945's Detour. And it's a short film. You can find it on Hulu Plus. It's a Criterion Collection. You should watch it and then come listen to us talk about it because, wow, what a film. That's it. Good night.
I don't know who said that I should ever have a microphone, but that person is a genius. Tommy out! Mic drop.